Mortgage wire fraud. Don't be a victim like me. When people buy and sell homes, they don't think that wiring money could be risky. They simply follow the instructions given to them by the real estate professionals. But sometimes criminals get access to wiring instructions, and instead of a home buyer's money going towards a home deposit, a down payment, or mortgage payoff, it's wired into a criminal's bank account. This is devastating for the buyers and sellers. I know because it happened to me and almost happened to a client. I feel a deep sense of responsibility to make sure this doesn't happen to other buyers and sellers. That's why I created this video. I'll explain what happened to me, what happened to a client, how criminals exploit the vulnerabilities in a real estate closing, how they steal the money, and what you can do to make sure your money is safe. Here's my story. On December 15th, 2017, I sold my house in Westfield, New Jersey. I'm a real estate agent and closings are a normal part of my job. This one was typical. At the end, the buyer was handed the house keys and the deed. My wife and I received our proceeds. But then something weird happened on January 4th, 20 days after the sale. I received an alert from my bank that a January monthly mortgage payment was made for the house we just sold. I called my mortgage lender and they said they never received a mortgage payoff. How did this happen? How did criminals steal my mortgage payoff without anybody knowing about it? Well, several days before my closing, my attorney asked me to contact my bank to get a mortgage payoff letter. I got the letter, which contained the mortgage balance, the closing date, the name on the account, my mortgage account number, and the wiring instructions. I sent it as a PDF attachment to my attorney. He then sent it to the closing agent. The criminals accessed the payoff letter, changed the bank account number on the wiring instructions, and emailed the title company. The title company didn't verify any of the information. So at closing, they wired $239,000 into the criminal's bank account instead of into my mortgage account. And here's the craziest part. Nobody knew that this criminal act took place until I discovered it 20 days after the closing. So that's my crazy story. But then it gets really bizarre because 2 months later, something very similar happened to a client. Days before their closing, they received emails from a criminal posing as their closing agent. The fake emails instructed my client to use updated wiring instructions. My client called her husband at work and said he needed to leave the office and go to their bank. He had to wire their $225,000 down payment immediately, otherwise they wouldn't close on time. He went to the bank and filled out the form to wire their money. But moments before handing it to the bank teller, his wife called him and said, "Please wait." His wife wanted to check the account number on the new wiring instructions against the earlier wiring instructions they received from the title company. She checked and it turned out the numbers did not match. So he did not wire the money based on the fraudulent wiring instructions. They came very, very close to losing their down payment. Who are these criminals and how do they do it? If I was a bad guy in a faraway country with computer hacking skills, I'd look at real estate transactions in the U.S. as a dream come true. Here's what I'd see. As many as a dozen people involved in the transaction. There are usually 2 buyers, 2 sellers, 2 lawyers in the states that use lawyers, paralegals and assistants in the law firms, 2 real estate agents, assistants at the real estate brokerages, mortgage loan originators, their assistants, loan processors, title company closing agents, settlement agents, escrow agents. And many of these parties work in small companies or on their own. They don't have a sophisticated IT department looking over their shoulder, making sure their websites and their emails are safe from hackers. I'd also see real estate professionals who are super busy and often distracted. They work with a lot of clients and are driven to close as many deals as possible. They work on volume. The more closings they do, the more money they make. And as the closing nears, the pressure builds. There's an onslaught of emails, questions about disclosures and fees and credits. Where is the closing going to take place? What time is it? Will it be delayed? Which documents weren't signed? What new documents need to be signed? Where are the wiring instructions? And many of these emails with these questions CC everyone. Some have attachments. It's hard to keep track. It's frenetic. And this is when the criminals strike. The criminals have hacked into one of the parties' email accounts and have been monitoring the inbox. They're reading and waiting for one particular email, the wiring instructions. When they see it, they'll download it, they change it with their bank account number, and then they send it back out. They will send it from an email address that looks similar to a real party's email address. If the buyer wires their money into the criminal's account, it'll vanish pretty quickly. Some banks require a 24-hour hold, others do not. The money could be transferred into a foreign bank account and then withdrawn and moved into another account. Within a few days, it could bounce around the world well before any of the parties in the real estate transaction even suspect there might have been a problem. Now, these criminals are smart, and they're outsmarting the real estate professionals, the real estate agents, the title company, the banks, and lawyers. The mortgage wire fraud stats from the FBI are frightening. In 2017, $969 million was diverted or attempted to be diverted to criminally controlled accounts, and the average fraud amount is $129,427. How can this problem be solved? Well, there's a potential regulatory fix. Require banks to match the account number to the account holder before clearing a wire transfer. However, changing regulations of any industry is a long-term lobbying effort. Until then, buyers and sellers need to protect themselves. Now, if you're a buyer, here's what you can do. Whenever you receive wiring instructions by email, check the sender's email address. If it's not the same address from an earlier email, or if it's the first time you're receiving an email from this person, be suspicious. Call the company and speak to the sender. And make sure you call the correct number and not the number on the suspicious email. Use the number on a business card or look up the number on the company's website. When you speak with the sender, ask them if they sent the email. If the email isn't from them, it's an attempt to steal your money. Tell the title company, tell your lender, tell your real estate agent, tell your lawyer, and report it to the FBI. And go into www.ic3.gov to report it. If they did send the email, read to them the wiring instructions. Verify the account name, the number, and the amount of money to be wired. If you need to respond to their email, don't hit reply. Instead, hit forward and write the person's known email address. After the money is wired, call the receiving party to make sure the money was received. If it wasn't received, it's imperative to report it immediately. There's a very small window of time that a bank has to recall a wire transfer. A few other things to consider if you're a buyer. Choose a title company that takes measures to avoid wire fraud. Tech-savvy title companies do not accept wiring instructions by email. All wiring instructions are entered directly into a secure portal. Pay the old-fashioned way. Use paper. Pay your deposit and your down payment by a bank check. Purchase an owner's title policy. This adds a layer of protection on top of the mandatory lender's title insurance policy. If you're a seller, you also need to be vigilant. When you receive a payoff letter from your mortgage lender, it will contain wiring instructions. Before you send this to your attorney or the title company, call the person you're sending it to. Verify their email address and tell them to call you as soon as they receive your email. When they call you, ask them to read aloud the wiring instructions. Pay special attention to the account holder's name, account number, amount of the wire instructions, and the bank address. Also, immediately after the closing, call your mortgage lender and verify they received the wire from the title company. These simple steps will help prevent criminals from stealing your money. Thanks for watching.